My wife is 33 years old. We have been married for 13 years, and my wife just cheated on me. She cheated on me on a girls' trip, not even 30 minutes away from where we live. On day one of three, she slept with another man. She said she went to a bar with her girlfriends and family, of course. And at this bar, she wanted to see if she still had it, or so she says.
What kind of nonsense is that? I just wanted to see if I still had it. What does that even mean? The ability to attract attention? To get picked up at a bar? It's a lose-lose situation from the start. If she doesn't still have it, meaning she gets rejected, she walks away feeling deflated and insecure. Nothing gained, just wounded pride. But if she does still have it, now what? She succeeded in getting a stranger interested in her. And then what happens? Either she leads him on with no intention of going further, which is deception, or, as in this case, she follows through and cheats. Either way, it's dishonest. Even the setup, going to someone just to test your market value while married, already violates the spirit of marital commitment. You're playing with fire under the excuse of curiosity. It reminds me of a principle in Jewish ethics. You're not allowed to ask a storekeeper the price of an item if you have no intention to buy it. Why? Because you're raising false hopes. You're misleading someone for your own benefit, even if it's just to feel good or satisfy curiosity. As explained by Rabbi Aaron Tendler, it is prohibited by the Torah to ask someone who is interested in selling or leasing something how much he or she is charging for that item, if the person asking has no interest in purchasing the item and is only interested in knowing the price for other reasons. Similarly, a person may not ask a worker who is interested in a job how much his fees are if the employer has no intent to hire this worker to work for him. A person who does ask in the manner stated above transgresses the prohibition of Vayikra 25:17, and a man may not oppress, by misleading, his friend. By asking the price, he is raising his friend's hopes that he has a potential customer, only to be disappointed when he realizes that his hopes were raised for nothing. This is no different. It's not innocent. It's not harmless. It's self-serving, deceptive, and destructive for everyone involved. So no, I wanted to see if I still had it is not an excuse. It's a confession of vanity and betrayal wrapped in shallow self-validation.
She approached a guy who is 10 years younger than her, talked to him, had a few drinks, and danced together. And she said that was supposed to be it. But somehow he charmed her into a kiss. That kiss led to them making out.
Where were her friends in all of this? Were they just standing there, watching it unfold? Did none of them think to step in? Were they really okay with watching their married friend flirt with a stranger, drink with him, dance with him, and head straight toward adultery, all without saying a word? If so, then that's not just passive, that's evil. Because failure to prevent evil, when you could have, is itself evil. A gentle, timely word from a friend might have changed everything. Maybe just a quiet, respectful comment like, "Do you really think this is a good idea?" That's all it takes sometimes. A moment of clarity. A wake-up call. As it says in Leviticus 19:17, "Directly rebuke your neighbor so that you will not incur guilt on account of him." This doesn't mean you have to yell or be aggressive. It could be as simple as a calm question, a concerned look, a nudge toward conscience. But if you see someone stepping into a moral disaster, especially a friend, and you say nothing, you share in the guilt. You could have intervened. You could have made a difference. The Bible does not teach, "You do you." That's a modern slogan, not a moral principle. From both a biblical and rational standpoint, minding your own business in the face of harm is cowardice, not virtue. Think about it. If this act of cheating leads to divorce, the harm spreads far beyond the couple. The children suffer. Their emotional security, stability, and trust in family are shattered. How could it possibly be moral to stay out of it when you had the chance to prevent that pain? When you see someone about to throw away their marriage, betray their spouse, and risk wrecking their family, and you say nothing, you're not just a bystander, you're complicit.
Making out led to her inviting him to walk her back to her hotel. They went back to the hotel. And they did what grown-ups do until she finally asked him to leave and he left. She said he wasn't forceful. She said he didn't beg, he wasn't angry, he was none. He was very respectable.
This was a step-by-step into betrayal, and that's exactly how it happens. As the Talmud says in Pirkei Avot 4:2, for one commandment leads to another commandment, and transgression leads to another transgression. And in Talmud Shabbat 105b, Rabbi Yohanan ben Nuri, one who rends his garments in his anger, or who breaks his vessels in his anger, or who scatters his money in his anger, should be like an idol worshipper in your eyes, as that is the craft of the evil inclination. Today it tells him do this, and tomorrow it tells him do that, until eventually, when he no longer controls himself, it tells him worship idols, and he goes and worships idols. This is the psychology of sin. It starts small. The evil inclination doesn't begin with the final act. It begins with something that feels harmless, just a chat, just a drink, just a dance. But once you've taken the first step, you're in its grip. The boundaries are already compromised. What was once unthinkable becomes negotiable. Temptation builds. One sin leads to another. And now that you've already kissed, already made out, why stop there? You've crossed the line already. Might as well go all the way. That's how the evil inclination works. It's a Trojan horse. It enters subtly, quietly, and once the gates are open, it unleashes destruction. This isn't just about adultery. It's about how all moral failure works. Sin escalates, and unless you resist it at the first step, it becomes exponentially harder to resist later. What started as a so-called harmless moment led to the betrayal of a 13-year marriage. One sin, then another, and then another, until the sacred is trampled and trust is shattered. That is the path of the evil inclination, and it begins with the lie. It's not a big deal.
She called me this morning, crying, to tell me all of that. She said she didn't know what got into her. She also mentioned that she told the guy that she was going through a divorce. We have been married for 13 years.
How does a woman feel safe going with a total stranger and staying overnight? That's not even the main point here. But it does say something about her judgment. We're talking about someone who left with a man she just met at a bar. Not a close friend. Not someone she had known for months. A complete stranger. That's a major red flag in itself. But let's go deeper. She lied, seemingly effortlessly. She looked this man in the eye and said she was going through a divorce. No hesitation. That's a serious lie, not just a small fib. She was actively trying to lower the moral barrier for what she was about to do. And then, after sleeping with him, now the tears come. Now it's, I didn't know what got into me, which also is a lie. So what changed? It's very convenient that only after you've done what you wanted, now you feel bad. You had full control of yourself when you approached the guy, drank with him, danced with him, kissed him, went to the hotel, and committed adultery. Where was the crying then? And here's another question. Was she wearing her wedding ring? If yes, and he saw it, then he is just as vile. If he knew she was married and chose to sleep with her anyway, then he's guilty too. This isn't just her sin, it's his as well. The Bible is brutally clear on this point. Leviticus 20:10. If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress must surely be put to death. Now, of course, we don't enforce that today. But it tells you something about how seriously this crime is taken in God's eyes. Both parties are morally responsible. This leads to a very difficult and painful question. Should someone who has committed adultery confess it to their spouse? I don't feel comfortable giving a definitive answer here. The stakes are too high. On the one hand, confession can destroy a marriage. It can plunge families into chaos. The children may suffer tremendously. It causes deep emotional trauma to the betrayed spouse. You're ripping their world apart. On the other hand, silence means you live a lie for the rest of your life. You've robbed your spouse of the ability to make an informed choice. Because maybe, if they knew who you really were, they wouldn't want to stay. That's not a minor issue. That's a major betrayal. There is no easy answer. There is no clean outcome. Every path leads to suffering. And that's exactly why adultery is so dangerous. Before you even think about what to do after cheating, maybe you should spend more time thinking about how to never cheat in the first place. Seriously, what was your thinking in that moment? What was your calculation? You're married. You have a husband, kids, a life you've built together for 13 years, and you threw it all away. For what? For a stranger at a bar? That's not just immoral. That's not just foolish. That's catastrophic. You didn't just betray your spouse. You betrayed your children. You betrayed your own dignity. Adultery isn't just a private sin. It's a bomb that detonates through an entire family. So instead of asking what to do after the explosion, how about learning how to disarm the bomb before it goes off? Judaism has a lot to say about protecting marriages, guarding against temptation, and building ethical fences to prevent exactly this kind of disaster. If you want to learn more, visit my website Radical Universe, where we explore these topics in depth, because a little wisdom before the fall is worth 1,000 apologies after the damage is done.
We have a 7-year-old together. I haven't talked to my wife since this morning. Now, her family and friends that were with her messaged me telling me that they didn't know that she left the club with him.
How could they possibly not know? Are we really supposed to believe that their friend just vanished from the club, late at night, to go to a stranger's hotel room, and no one noticed? She just slipped away without saying a word, and no one batted an eye? No one thought to ask, where did she go? No one checked on her? You're telling me that in a group of friends and family, not a single person thought it was concerning when one of them disappeared, presumably at nighttime? That's not just negligent, that's shameful. If your friend vanishes into the night and no one even texts, calls, or checks in with her, what kind of friends are you? And then there's this. How do they know about the guy now? Did the wife tell them everything? If so, that raises another issue. A big one. Why is she airing all this to her family and friends? Why is she publicizing the fact that she cheated, and in doing so, further humiliating the husband who has already been betrayed? That's not accountability. That's spreading the wreckage even further. Now everyone knows. It's no longer just a private failure. It's a public spectacle. And he's the one who has to carry the shame of her actions. There's a level of indecency here that goes beyond the act of adultery itself. When you sin, you don't drag everyone down with you. You don't compound betrayal with public exposure. You don't humiliate the person you betrayed even further by making them the subject of gossip and pity. This whole thing is a mess. And the more you look at it, the more you realize it's not just one person who failed. It's an entire ecosystem of moral collapse. Not only does bad company corrupt good character, it also allows evil to spiral out of control.
They said that they seen them talking at the club but didn't think anything of it. But that's what happened. So I called my mother to tell her about the issue. I called my mom. I told her what was going on. And she told me to think of my family. She said, think of your family. Even though she cheated, it was not an affair.
How is it not an affair? Sleeping with someone other than your spouse is, by definition, an affair. There's no need to soften the language or pretend it was something less. She wasn't tricked. She wasn't coerced. She made a conscious decision to sleep with another man. That is an affair. Plain and simple. Now, the mother said, think of your family. And that's a fair point. But thinking of your family doesn't automatically mean don't get divorced. It also means thinking long and hard about the environment your child will grow up in. You need to ask, what kind of person has your spouse shown herself to be? Is she someone of integrity? Is she a good role model for your child? Will staying together genuinely protect the child's well-being or just expose them to a toxic dynamic? If your wife is capable of this level of betrayal, irresponsibility, and deception, then that says something about her character. And if she doesn't show deep remorse, seek help, or work hard to repair the damage, then staying together might do more harm than good. That said, rash decisions are dangerous, especially in the middle of emotional devastation. Take your time. Let the dust settle. Seek professional counseling, both individually and together. You don't have to decide everything overnight, but you do need to be honest with yourself and stop pretending this was anything less than what it really was. A betrayal. one that may have lasting consequences. Whatever path you choose it with clarity, with support, and with yours and your child's long-term well-being in mind.
So even though this is a bad scenario, it's the best of a bad scenario because this isn't the worst case. So you should forgive your wife and stay in it because of your family. And after I got off the phone with my mother.
So before the victim has even had a single day to process what just happened, the mother is already talking about forgiveness. That shows a serious lack of emotional intelligence and wisdom. The advice she should have given was simple. Take time. Grieve. Seek professional counseling. Do not rush any decisions. Jumping straight to forgiveness, especially so quickly, does something dangerous. It minimizes the severity of the betrayal. It gives the impression that what happened isn't all that serious, just a bump in the road, when in reality, it's a moral earthquake. Think about it. Imagine someone murdered your spouse and 5 minutes later you say, "All good. I forgive you." Wouldn't that feel wrong? Wouldn't it cheapen the entire gravity of what just occurred? Of course, infidelity isn't the same as murder, but the logic stands. Forgiveness without time, reflection, or accountability isn't noble. It's hollow. And forgiving too easily can also send the wrong message to the betrayer, that there are no consequences, that they'll be taken back no matter what they do. So no, the right move is not to rush to forgiveness. The right move is to pause, to process, to let the truth of what happened sink in before deciding what healing, if any, is even possible.
I can't help but think that I must be insane then. I must be crazy. Because no fiber of my being even remotely thinks to forgive her. So, am I wrong for not wanting to think of my family and for wanting to leave?
You're not insane. You're not crazy. You've just been hit with something that would shake anyone to their core. Of course you don't feel like forgiving her right now. Why would you? That's not a sign of madness. It's a sign that you understand the seriousness of betrayal. You're still deep in the storm, and when you're in that place, you're not supposed to make final decisions. That doesn't mean you're wrong for wanting to leave. It means you're human. Maybe weeks from now, you'll still feel the same. That trust is broken beyond repair and staying would only hurt you more. Or maybe you'll feel differently and consider reconciliation. Either way, it has to be your decision, not one made for you by pressure, guilt, or rushed emotions. There is nothing wrong with feeling anger, grief, or a desire to walk away. Those are all natural responses to being betrayed by someone you loved and trusted. So no, you're not wrong for how you feel. You're allowed to step back and say, "I need time to think." And as for the advice being thrown at you by family, remember this. They won't live with the consequences of staying or leaving. You will. So if you're going to seek advice, seek it from someone who is trained to give it. Someone who can help you sort through the wreckage with clarity, not just emotion. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they know what's best for you. Take your time. Feel what you feel. Don't rush forgiveness. And don't let anyone tell you that wanting to walk away from betrayal makes you crazy. It might just mean you still have self-respect.
So short answer is no, you're not insane. You're evil. That's the reason why you wouldn't want to forgive someone in this situation.
To accuse someone of being evil simply because they don't want to forgive immediately after betrayal is, ironically, a form of evil in itself. First, it slanders a person who is clearly in emotional pain. You're labeling someone as doing a wicked act not for what they did, but for how they feel, and not even in the long term, but in the immediate aftermath of devastation. That's not only unfair, it's heartless. Second, by throwing around the word evil so lightly, over what is essentially an emotional reaction, not an action, you dilute the meaning of the word. Evil is abuse. Evil is cruelty. Evil is taking pleasure in harming others, lying to destroy reputations, exploiting the vulnerable, or showing no remorse for wicked deeds. Evil is not the natural human response of hurt, anger, or a lack of immediate forgiveness when someone has been betrayed by the person they loved and trusted most. We don't even know whether this man will forgive or not. We only know that right now he can't imagine doing so. And why would he? That's not evil. That's honest. and calling him evil for that is outrageous and lacking in wisdom. There is nothing morally profound or sophisticated about being so insensitive and blunt in such a case as this. You may think it sounds so righteous and noble, but it's not. This is pseudo-righteousness. It has the appearance of righteousness, but in reality lacks true moral clarity.
Just so you guys know, I looked at that guy's account and he just reads Reddit stories. He didn't actually go through that. He's just reading something that someone else posted. And who knows whether or not that actually happened. I am inclined to believe that it did actually happen. But
Whether it did or didn't, we can still learn valuable lessons from it.
either way, today's video is going to be about why in that situation it would be the right thing to do to forgive your wife who just cheated on you and admitted it. I made this video 5 months ago if you want to check it out. It's basically on the same topic, but reason number one why the husband would want to forgive the wife, or even vice versa in the situation, is because they promised to. According to this AI overview, "till death do us part" is a common phrase used in traditional wedding vows, signifying a lifelong commitment between a couple. It means that the marriage is intended to last until one partner dies. The reason why this is the traditional thing to say is because it's actually the biblical thing to say. Marriage lasts until death. Okay, until one of the two dies. I've never heard anyone saying anything like "till death or sexual immorality does us part."
The phrase "till death do us part" is traditionally said during wedding ceremonies as part of the marriage vows. Naturally, no one recites except in cases of sexual immorality during the ceremony. It would undermine the tone and spirit of the occasion to mention potential sins at the moment of union. However, outside the ceremonial context, the idea that sexual immorality justifies divorce is widely held. Martin Luther, for example, affirmed that adultery is a legitimate ground for both divorce and remarriage, as noted in the book Sex in Christianity and Psychoanalysis. He thought it clear, both from the ordinance of creation and the teaching of Christ, that marriage is meant to last throughout life, and he confessed that he found divorce so abhorrent that he would prefer bigamy. However, he recognized certain problems obscured by the fiat of Rome. Luther found that Christ accepted adultery in his ban on divorce, and the Catholic Church allowed separation on these grounds. But the gospel record is silent on the question whether the innocent party may remarry. The Church forbade it. Luther asked on what authority. Paul had said that it is better to marry than to be consumed with passion. But suppose the innocent one burns. What then? The Church replied, "Let him contain." Luther was more realistic. He believed that in cases of adultery, the guilty party severed the marriage tie so that the innocent one can act as though his spouse had died and he is free to marry again.
Doesn't happen. Also, we see over and over and over again in the Bible, let's just go to one place, Romans chapter 15. "Therefore accept one another just as Christ also accepted us to the glory of God." Do you know whose glory it's for? If you forgive and accept someone despite their sin against you, it is for the glory of God. We see in Matthew chapter 6 as well, Jesus said, "If you forgive others for their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, then your Father will not forgive your transgression."
That sounds like works-based salvation to me. According to my interpretation, even if someone is a Christian who believes in Jesus, they still won't be forgiven unless they perform the act of forgiving others? How exactly does that work? Are you saying that belief in Christ alone is not enough? That if a Christian struggles with forgiveness, they remain unforgiven, die in their sins, and go to hell? That seems like overkill. It raises serious theological concerns. Is salvation conditional not just on faith, but also on emotional or behavioral performance? What happens if someone genuinely wants to forgive but struggles to do so because of deep trauma or pain? Are they damned for that? This passage seems to blur the line between grace and works, and it's not clear how that fits with the doctrine of salvation by faith alone, which is what many Protestants consistently preach.
We see in Colossians chapter 3, "Bearing with one another and graciously forgiving each other, whoever has a complaint against anyone, just as the Lord graciously forgave you, so also should you." There's never a commandment to not forgive someone, essentially. Is it insane to not want to forgive someone when they sin against you? It's natural for the sinner to do that, but it is actually rather logical to desire justice of some sort when that happens. But the commandment is not for you personally to hold a grudge or anything like that.
We often hear that forgiveness is always the right response, but is it? The Bible presents a more nuanced picture. God himself does not always forgive. For example, in Exodus 27 we read, "You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not leave anyone unpunished who takes his name in vain." This is not a vague warning. It is a firm declaration that forgiveness is not guaranteed. In Exodus 23:21, referring to the angel sent before Israel, "Pay attention to him and listen to his voice. Do not defy him, for he will not forgive rebellion, since my name is in him." In Deuteronomy 19:11-13, the law explicitly commands against pity for a murderer. If, however, a man hates his neighbor and lies in wait, attacks him and kills him, and then flees to one of these cities, the elders of his city must send for him, bring him back, and hand him over to the avenger of blood to die. You must show him no pity. You are to purge from Israel the guilt of shedding innocent blood, that it may go well with you. If you are commanded to show no pity, that suggests you are also commanded not to forgive. The family of the murder victim is not expected to forgive the killer. They are told justice must prevail. Jeremiah 18:23 shows the prophet even praying that God not forgive. "But you, Lord, know all their plots to kill me. Do not forgive their crimes or blot out their sins from your sight. Let them be overthrown before you. Deal with them in the time of your anger." Likewise, in Nehemiah 4:5, "Do not forgive their guilt, and do not let their sin be wiped out before you, for they have demoralized the builders." Psalm 139-21:22, "Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord, and detest those who rise against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them as my enemies." If you hate someone, you have most likely not forgiven them. These passages show that there is a biblical precedent for withholding forgiveness, not out of bitterness, but out of justice, truth, and moral clarity. Forgiveness is not always obligatory, and in some cases, it may even be wrong. In the second part of responding to this video, we will consider this Christian's radical claims about divorce, and when it is allowed or not. If you have learned something from this video, please like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.